Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, let's talk about how worthless common electrical engineers, physicists, etc. are to the bigger picture and of course to the next level of technologies, etc. One of the problems is that all of education, whether someone has been a teacher, professor, has a PhD or a doctorate, they are getting these qualifications from common schools teaching what they've been teaching for literally the past 50 to 100 years with minor changes. So they're basically learning old history. Now, if we look at old history, does that pertain to today? Well, to a certain extent, yes. I mean, there are some basics. I mean, there's an old cliche that history repeats itself because things are very similar. Well, yeah, well, I kind of agree with that and I kind of don't. History repeats itself because nothing is ever solved. We have one conflict after another, and really what has happened with these conflicts? We've had world wars with horrific tyrants, and all we do is blow them up and then give them all sorts of money to come back, and they can now work from the underground to control and dominate the world. That's why history repeats itself, not because of the situation itself per se. So by learning the old stuff and interpreting everything in the old way that you have been sanctified to do, well, here's a big time certificate. You are now a complete certified idiot. Yep, you get a big job. This is exactly what's happening with the entire world, and while we never get anywhere. This happens in medicine, engineering, and particularly in physics and understanding how the world works. Yet we are constantly getting into new areas, new information that opens up. And with the exchange of information, which happens in some industries, certainly doesn't happen in any alternative industries. Maybe MIT and Caltech talk to each other, and I don't know if they do or not. There's a certain exchange of information. The scientific community is supposedly about new thoughts and discussing things to come to a synergistic understanding or a better understanding using multi-heads are better than one, as the old saying goes. And I've always been in favor of that. I think that new ideas that you may not have thought of stimulate your next thoughts. It may not be the correct one that someone tells you, but this is why I've talked about learning. Learning is the fact of, yeah, this information may not be correct, but it triggers higher levels of thought that lead you to the new information. But you got to remember that nobody in any industry does that. If you talk outside of the brainwashing certificate of ignorance and stupidity that they all have on their walls, their PhDs, their MBAs, no matter what it is, when you actually look at these things, it's all based in old tech. And certainly foundations are important, and I teach these myself, but foundations are only there to get you on the path. Past that, we need people that come up with new ideas. And this very rarely happens. What really happens is a variation of an old idea, very minorly. So if you work with door hinges all day and you're any kind of a smart person or a thinking person, well, you probably figure out ways to use better door hinges. Well, how can we make this a little better? How can we make the design more efficient, make it less expensive? This is what people should be doing in the process of it all. The practical physical engineering. Now, physicists just say we can make it out of air. Yeah, because air is molecules. And of course, then the engineers have to say, well, air is not dense enough to make a physical item. You can't hang a door on it. Yeah, we should. So this is the kind of nonsense that happens that we go back and forth with. So generally, engineering is kept in check to a degree by the fact that they have to produce results. Unfortunately, oftentimes the things are horribly engineered, horribly put together. Programs you buy, that our software programs are made by a bunch of stooges that don't seem to even understand how to do anything. A lot of technologies, no matter what they are, from your basic computers to anything that you connect to it, printers, scanners, etc. Well, a lot of this technology is pretty mediocre. And that's because a lot of it is they're thinking in the backward direction. So the whole idea is that we need to have forward-thinking people that have new ideas. And you don't really get this from hardly anyone. Those people known for the greatest amount of patents that are filed and so forth are not filing any new ideas. They're just variations of the hinge again. And you'll find this from most people that scream around that they have great engineering. Well, they really don't. And there's nothing impressive about it. And their societies are pretty incompetent and rotten, whether this is the Japanese, the Germans, or the Chinese, etc. All of this stuff is crap, including American industries as well. But, America is so intermingled with every possible culture because everybody goes to America because that's where the money is, plain and simple. The better lifestyles, the security, etc. in general is America. So you have this diversity of opinion and thinking there, which does tend to breed the best products. And of course, Americans then give these products away to the rest of the world like the stooges they are. But these are other issues. So if you go to a top electrical engineer in the industry that knows something and you show them designs for advanced technologies, and this even could be more electrical based, free energy machines, or particularly when it gets into consciousness machines, radionic machines, they look at this and say it makes no sense. Well, of course it doesn't make sense in the common brainwashed electrical mentality that you come from. So is this guy good for anything? No. Absolutely useless. I don't care if he's made the best computer, the best whatever's out there. It doesn't work. Computers do not work with advanced manifesting technologies. Computers are bogus. Digitalization is bogus. You have to go past that. And while you need to communicate with the world and these people by using some of their, quote, terminology, it is really a misnomer to do that. An entire new vocabulary should be started. But that, of course, is very difficult to do and work with things. But you can't talk to a regular manufacturer of electronic products or software and have them understand how they're going to make something that is radionics or consciousness-based technologies, which do not work through the traditional electronic means. Now, you use these tools because that's what you have. It amazes me that people think that somehow that Abrams or Hieronymus or other people used products that were particularly new or invented something. They used the tools they had. Hieronymus moved away from very good tubes because tubes were old-fashioned, and he moved into solid state, basically messing his device up horribly because that was the new tech. So the whole idea is that trying to think like an electrical engineer while building consciousness machines does not work. Trying to digitalize doesn't work. Using a goofy little sharp computer on scalar antennas that look computer-like doesn't work. It's garbage technology. So the bottom line is that all of these things doesn't work, and people are mimicking too much from the past. So you want to build a radionic machine, so you go back to Ruth Drown, because after all, that's where it started. Well, that's right. Again, that's a foundation you had. Well, what were they doing here, and what were their actual understandings and so forth? And it's not what anybody thinks, because nobody has read their books or literature. So you give general opinions that you've heard from other people, and even I've done this. I mean, what they were doing and their technologies were quite different than their mass-marketed models, which are very simple. Ruth Drown was an electrical person, worked in electronic assembly factors, I believe radios or other things, and was even awarded an award for the Rockefeller Foundation, I believe. One of those big foundations, which is even more amusing. So the history of these things and what went on is quite fascinating. Where did these things go? Now, a lot of people like to go over to Hieronymus again. Again, he had a classical engineering background, but he did understand these alternative energies, and certainly would be an interesting person in this day and age to talk to figure out what exactly they were into, etc. And there is some of this out there, and it's a mountain of literature that really can be read on the pioneers in this industry. But they had very old technologies. Now, again, are old technologies good? Well, they are. Just like what are called valves in Europe and what are called tubes in the United States. Well, these are fascinating things which have been discarded since transistors and solid state came in there. Because tubes, of course, don't last forever. You have to test them. You have to let them heat up. They get hot. They use more electricity. So there are some negativities to building an entire radio or TV with tubes. But that's how they started out. And I don't know how many other people remember tubes being inside their TVs and radios, etc. But I do remember this myself in my early middle 60s now. I do remember these to a degree. I remember having a little tube TV that had tubes in the back. Now, for these type of purposes, converting over to solid state and transistors, of course, is a better way to go for most of it. But a lot of these things, the Japanese in particular, took tubes and they miniaturized them down to tiny little miniatured circuits that they have used in a lot of particularly audio devices. Musicians are still going back to and using tube amplifiers and preamps because it picks up resonance, which is part of manifesting energies. So the whole idea, there is a better sound from it. There is a better everything when you start using tubes. So there is a place for that. There's also a place for all the modern stuff as well, particularly photonic energy carriers. Photonic energy carriers known as lasers, which hardly anybody uses in common industry in terms of alternative, because they're so ignorant to the fact of how powerful photons are. So this is all nonsense that people really didn't understand. And I was using lasers 30 years ago, and lasers have been around for a long time, and now they're super cheap, and there's many types of lasers you can get, a very high quality for very low price. So nobody uses them in the alternative industry but myself, and this is because of their ignorance. But this will be coming out, and these are all the new advances that we will be offering here in the near future. So, and I have already this in the past been doing this as well. So you're basically getting a bunch of junk technology produced by a bunch of ignoramuses that don't have any idea what they're doing, and the good technology like mine is continually suppressed by outside forces that continually mess up with production and fulfillment. That is always seems to be a problem with this company because we soar ahead, and they want you to buy the stuff from the Satanists, like the old Carl Hans Welz, who was a known Satanist who produced toxic materials that we all know about, called his particular type of organ. So these are the type of things that you get stuck with that toxify and destroy your life, and this is the type of things that we are particularly stuck with. So, as we need to understand this, and this gets back to those people who are the alternative people, because they may have it wrong as well. Again, they are basing their belief systems on old stuff, and not a single person other than myself has come out with a new radionic design. People don't understand how they work. They think that radionic machines, when you turn a dial, something happens. It doesn't happen. These are circuits that most of the time don't have electricity going through it, and they're basically psychic crutches. So, and the energy generally stops there. People don't understand that. They don't understand what dialing in a dial means and what rates are. And if you talk, obviously, to common electronic people, they're going to look at this and say, well, there's nothing happened. These wires are just going to potentiometers turning a dial, but nothing is happening because there's nothing going through them. Well, in common electronics, that is correct. The same thing with computerization. Now, I just talked about computerization in the last lecture of how regular computerization and the moving of actually data is nowhere near enough to move the 100 terabytes of information that even the tiniest thought form has. So it's worthless. Putting numbers and shooting them into a scalar antenna in a pseudo computerized looking unit is a waste of time, and especially when they cost thousands and thousands of dollars for what is basically very primitive technology. Again, what's happening here is you're basically just putting your thought form energies into a scalar antenna, and this will produce some results. Again, very little has been documented from people that have been doing this for 40 years with the same instruments. We also have people who are producing old Hieronymus instruments and have been doing it for many years, etc. Well, they're just copying Hieronymus, and we don't really know what he did or not yet again. Because of all this stuff, because of the fact that this is suppressed, that these people don't come out and are able to handle testing these things, and when it comes to actual physical medical type things, and then when it converts over to crops, there seems to be a problem as well because of the billion-dollar pesticide industries. We just don't know what the truth of any of this is, and very few people seem to have done anything in this area to get the information out. There is some out there, and there's even been books written recently by a few people of working with this kind of technology. So we just don't know, and I don't believe anybody. I don't believe what they tell me. I'm going to have to see it myself. I'm going to have to replicate it, etc. And of course, this is what regular science does and what they're good at if they're doing it properly. But they're really not. They're doing what their buddies tell them to do. They're really doing what their instructors and the institution they are connected to, like MIT or Caltech. Well, these are institutions with policies you follow or you're out. And, it's always good to say, well, anybody should be able to do what they want. Well, you can't do that in an institution. And you have to be careful to keep people in line doing what has value and people doing things that apparently don't have value, that don't produce any results. It takes a very wise leader to be able to run a fluid organization and allow people to do what they want, because a lot of people just don't know what they're doing. Do you want to give them thousands of dollars to do that when those thousands of dollars could go to research that would do better? But the bottom line is that this is an area of study that I have labeled occult engineering. This is special type of engineering that only a few people understand, and the alternative practitioners aren't doing it. I mean, they're copying old devices. They're doing stuff in the same exact way, finding old machines, copying them, etc. And there's nothing wrong with finding old technology. Well, what were they doing there? Is there a hint of how to now use the bigger and better and more efficient parts and knowledge we have to take the basic understanding and make it better? Most people aren't doing that. They're copying things. And by copying things with very little variations, we have problems. They don't understand metals. They don't understand plastic. They don't understand wiring. All this stuff they just don't get. And these are the alternative people, because they are going again back on believing many of people that are actually out and out frauds in the industry, as I've just pointed out several. These people have no idea what they're doing. Some of them are actually hardcore Satanists who are producing toxic, dangerous tools. This is not funny, people. So it's hurting the industry, and none of the industry, because of the way it's been set up, and particularly by those who make sure stuff like this don't get to the public. They don't want people working together. They want people fighting with each other. And of course, since this alternative industry that deals with radionics has completely been taken over by Satanists, who are criminals as well, you have all sorts of problems involved there. This is the reality that is going on out there. So we do have to understand that of the picture. So, but let's talk about the fact that you think you can go to a top electronic person who makes whatever, whether it's computer programs or electrical products or whatever it may be, and you think you can talk to them about this kind of energies and how you could what? They have no idea. You can't tell them anything. You can't assist them because they will have no idea what to do because as far as they're concerned, the flow of the energy, which is electrical energy, through a particular device doesn't make any sense whatsoever. This doesn't work is what they're going to tell you. This is just, you're just putting electrical frequencies through here, and even if you adjust them, well, what does that do? This is why so many people fall into the Hertz trap. These are frequency generators they're working with, and they think that frequencies are what this energy is all about. Well, it's not. And frequencies is a whole nother different field of alternative energies, meaning Rife-type machines, frequency energy machines, energy machines. The whole idea is that these are certainly a very fascinating area. Can a frequency affect physicalities, and can it be actually broadcast? Now, we know that frequencies, particularly when they hit the mind and the brain energy fields, because you are a semi-electromagnetic battery, that you can affect people. And this is generally a direct contact, meaning you have to be in the line of sight to do this. You can shoot frequencies at somebody, line of sight, and hit them, and these things happen. You can't do that by broadcasting a Hertzian frequency through a radionic type machine. This doesn't work. You'd have to come up with a rate for that frequency, which is a symbolic image of that particular frequency, and then you send it to that person. It is very different. So we're apples and oranges again, and there are people that are mixing all this because they don't have any idea what they're doing. They're putting together stuff because they haven't been able to figure out the physics, the science of subtle energy physics. They've decided to go back and use the ignoramus people. But if you go to regular trained electrical people that don't understand energies, and these people show them the crap that they make, well, they'll laugh at you as well because it's nonsense to them. Well, that's right. So that's why these people have limited uses. And that's why things tend to get a little more basic in terms of these kind of consciousness machines. Consciousness machines are not computer-based. They are not electronically enhanced items unto themselves. You can't make an electronic radionic machine that does everything electronically, just like you can't make one that is a computer program. None of this stuff works. Now, some people think that that is not true. Well, I make it work. Well, first of all, I'd like to see the proof of that. But basically, things are working nothing more than psychic tuners. So if you tune something in on a computerized radionic machine from your computer, you're tuning psychically into it. So this means you're using psychic powers and psychic powers only. You're using a tool to help you psychically tune. There's no amplification. There's no broadcasting. There's nothing else that that technology is doing. The only thing it's doing is helping you tune. And of course, this is what, when you dial a particular radionic instrument in, does as well. People can get better results if they spend the time, and these are usually more advanced people. The average person finds the dials very intimidating and difficult, but once you know the energy fields and you have 9 dials to dial in, well, you tend to get a little better success because why? You're concentrating on the target and what you want through this process. You're also establishing a symbolic number to represent that energy field. So if that energy field was for success, by dialing in 9 dials, you're creating a number-based image, because they're not numbers, there's nothing to it. You're not counting here. If you have a 9-dial rate, that is, well, that's not a millions rates. What that is a number. You have 9 numbers that you look at from a metaphysical way, not as an individual number, but as an image that you have created. And right now, using numbers is a way to do it. I think it would be better to have actually images created that you dial in, which I'm working on as well. But in general, of course, That's the reality that we all need to look at in terms of what's going on. So, by doing that, we are then able to create a better contact with the person. But here again, if that machine that you dialed in is not connected to an amplifier and it's not connected to a transmitter, you are not putting out any kind of strong energies beyond what your psychic contact is. And now some people are very strong psychically. It's rare, but it's true. I mean, there's people that can heal, that apparently can do remote viewing, amazing things. So and it depends on you individually of how you can do this. Now, you can train yourself to a certain level as well, but the bottom line is that these are a psychic base. We're trying to get away from 100% psychic. I don't care how strong you are psychically. You can't maintain that very long, but yet if you have an amplifier and you have a transmitter connected to anything, you're getting a strong, consistent energy field that is projected at a particular target 24/7, and you just have to come in and boost this every once in a while. So that's the big difference. But we do have to understand that there is nothing happening, and actually it hurts all practices when you digitalize, when you computerize anything. You're killing the process that goes on here, and you are the ultimate empowerment here. You are the actual channel for these energies that you draw in and then to a certain extent build and then send to a particular target. You're the person doing that. You're not creating the energies. You are basically serving as this particular channel for the energy and then directing it to a target. You are not powerful enough. Now, when you basically stick to psychic power only, meaning your psychic projections, well, you're limiting yourself and you're not going to be able to do much, and your failure rate is going to be huge. People who do have certain energies like that have very great difficulties affecting people they don't know, and particularly at a distance. Now, a lot of people who do psychic work and so forth do it with you in front of them. They connect to you. They can feel your energies. This tends to be much better, including psychic healers who can transfer energy directly to you, laying on of hands, so to speak. So the whole idea is that's a whole nother ballpark. That's a whole different reality than trying to do it through a machine at a target that's very far away. Now, we understand that you do connect to people, and we understand that based in traditional quantum physics that everything is connected. Well, that's right. But that doesn't mean that you make changes. Quantum physicists don't believe that there is any information exchange through the quantum process. They believe everything is connected, but there's no information exchange. Well, that's where they're wrong. But the point is how strong is that exchange? And this is where using machines and tuning is so critical. It is not you psychic. Psychic is the bottom of the barrel of energies of these types. You have to go into high-level consciousness functioning, which has unlimited powers, and these have to be used through particular types of machines or tools that amplify things, whether they're a energy cell that you use or a more formal symbolic type machine where you send energy into amplifiers and transmitters. There's many ways of doing this at different levels and at different costs. And you can easily use these to do many different procedures once you understand the entire process. So this is all part of the understanding of what is going on with this type of technology. So you can't go to people that don't understand this technology and ask them to make something for you. It's really equivalent to having an electrical problem in your house and you call the plumber. Well, I mean, isn't it simple? Isn't electrical wiring kind of like plumbing? It goes in here, goes out there. You're running basically what considered pipes to one area. What's the difference between pipes and electrical wiring? Well, in a crude way, there isn't all that much difference in terms of the vulgar representation of it. But when you look at it closely, there's a great difference between the fact of moving water and moving electrical current that is going to different uses in different places. But many times, electricity and flow of water are often equated with each other for better understanding. But they are apples and oranges in the short and long run. So asking an electrical engineer to make sense of a circuit that does anything, and then he's going to do is he's going to push you into the electromagnetic spectrum. You say, well, why don't you use a coil here? Why don't you... What does he know about occult engineering? Nothing. So he's going to push you back into common electrical engineering, which has no value in this area. Only occult engineering matters. So it's very important to understand that. And this is why anybody in the common field doesn't have much value. And those who fall too much back on, and I have to catch myself all the time, particularly with physics, is falling into using too much understanding and too much terminology coming from these people that know nothing and have done nothing. Physics hasn't had a breakthrough in over 100 years. There's nothing new there. Their entire belief system was based on Isaac Newton, who was an alchemist, by the way, and spent the majority of his life studying alchemy. So the whole idea, and that's occult physics, all right. And that's the reason why he was able to break through on common physics, and most of what he has stated and figured out is still valued 500 years later. So, because there's a ultimate truth to it. But the bottom line is that we are in an entirely new reality here. And the next step in technology, the next level of technology is manifesting technology. We don't need to make robots to make things. Let's deal with the energy of creation and make it from there. Let's use the ultimate manifesting realities. And that's empowering what you want out of life and what you want to do, empowering that so it happens. That's what's critical. Whether you're highly educated, whether you're poor, rich, or whatever, the whole idea is to empower what you're doing and to have energy behind that. Successful people are not about their thoughts, not about what they've done. If you really look at all these people that are kept in high praise and regards, they were complete goofballs like Isaac Newton. This guy was pretty goofy. Look at the latest goofball Blofeld, otherwise known as Elon Musk. This guy is a complete nut job. Everything he talks about is bogus nonsense because he doesn't know anything. This is a software developer. This guy doesn't know anything. So the whole idea is this is the type of situation we run into. So we have to be very careful, and we can't let these people also lie and basically put out bogus con man information. But the bottom line is you can't go to even a person who has, quote, legitimacy in the common world, in common electronics, common software, and think that they can somehow take common software and now make it into something that is next level technology. They have no idea what they're doing. They're living in all the stuff they were taught 20, 30, 50 years ago. And certainly industries are updated to a degree, but they're not really updated. Everybody is still living in the reality that they were taught in schools. This is a big problem with medicine in particular, is that, what you learn in medical school, and good medical schools even tell you that, within 5 years, what we're teaching here is going to have little value to you. Well, that's frightening for the patient. How are these doctors keeping up with everything? What are they actually doing in the bigger picture? Well, the point is they're not able to keep up with things. They're busy enough doing all this stuff and being stressed out as the medical industry is. Well, they're going to have time to go to seminars and read a bunch of books. Even I can't read all the information I need to. I've got at least 75 to 100 critical books I need to read, and I haven't been able to do it in years. What do you think your doctor's doing? Well, they get little blurbs somewhere, little updates in their field, and that's about all they can handle. They're too busy working. What are we all supposed to do about that? But what's important is that you cannot get information from hardly anywhere, and I talk about this all the time. The people out there who are making their crap and selling them to people, particularly that is out there in this whole orgone dangerous con that has been put out there by people who not only produce dangerous toxic devices, but who are evil people on top of it. What a double whammy that is, Dr. Dorr. Ooh, well, that's pretty frightening, isn't it? But it's not overly unusual because the people that are in power and control of things are usually up to a bunch of nonsense. The big corporations, etc., are involved in all sorts of things they shouldn't be involved in, from buying politicians to giving money to criminals. Henry Ford was a big supporter of Adolf Hitler. He built factories there. He sent money to them. This while our troops are being murdered on the battlefield. This psychotic is doing that. I mean, what's new? They tried to overthrow the U.S. government in the 40s as well. That Roosevelt caught them doing that. Instead of hanging a bunch of people, I decided to sweep it under the table. And those people are alive and well, or their families, still trying to dominate the world and destroy what was, or already has destroyed what was a great American system, at least somewhat. So the whole idea is that all of this is something that we need to look at and look at completely in a proper understanding. So to think that somehow, and this of course, when we get back to electrical engineers, the prime example of this and kind of alternative that maybe a lot of people have looked at is what is it, Ghost Adventures? I'm trying to remember the show with Bilbo Baggins. Who is the commentator of that, or something Baggins, whatever his name is. The big con artist moneymaker that guy is, because he has no interest in really doing anything. He has interest in making as much money as can, even putting together a Las Vegas museum of haunted items. So the whole idea is that this is the reality of all of what's going on. But he's a person who then hired an electrical engineer of supposed worth. And of course, he produced different products for Bilbo and of course sells them online and so forth. It is worthless junk. He has no idea what he's doing. How is he going to take regular electronics and pick up ghost energy fields? Well, what are ghost energy fields? The electromagnetic spectrum. No, ghosts are not electromagnetic, as most of these phenomena are not. It has nothing to do with those energies, so they're lost to begin with. Science believes that if it's not in the electromagnetic spectrum, it does not exist. There's even a book written by some bogus, I think he was a physicist, that figured that out. There's no energies but what he can find. And of course, this is what what all of these schools talk about. And, that's fine for a foundation, but if you're going to get discoveries, have breakthroughs, and do things at higher levels, you have to really think much higher than that. And they don't. So, the reality of all this stuff is pretty frightening. So the whole idea is you can't go by these people. And here he hires, because he knows nothing about the commentator of that show, the guy who produced that show, who was a nobody, went to film school, then lucked out because a relative of him knew somebody at the Travel Channel, and he got his little show on. And, it's always fascinating. I think everybody's kind of interested in ghosts and this kind of phenomena. You don't have to believe in anything, but certainly entertaining because this is real, not some fantasy stuff. So the point is he's an absolutely, nobody. And of course, he's going to hire a nobody who's an electrical engineer that knows nothing about anything to figure out what the new energy fields are and how to pick up and sense energies. So he's going to make equipment, and it's worthless. That's all worthless. All the ghost hunter stuff is produced by a bunch of low-level idiots that know nothing. So we do have to understand all of those realities that are part of this, and the fact that they know nothing is quite profound. So the whole idea is that you, as a person in investigating this field, has to know that they know nothing. And it doesn't matter if they're alternative or not. There's a lot of alternative manufacturers out there that are making complete junk, computerized crap, copies of other people, putting basically Hertzian energies through a radionic machine, making all sorts of crap, or making some pseudo either computerized program or pseudo little computerized looking piece of garbage for thousands of dollars. I mean, this is all junk. And all these people, if you go and investigate them, will find out are connected to very nefarious people and situations. They all are. They're all bought and paid for. They're all corrupted. They've been all compromised. And if they're not, they're just plain stupid. And, stupid is something that is, unfortunately, pandemic. We should get actually a vaccination to stop stupid so that we can stop having stupid thoughts out there. So, which includes MIT, Caltech, and all these stupid organizations that perpetrate the same old technology time and time again. And then they appoint Blofeld out there so that he can figure out how to make the master machines that never, ever work. Unbelievable. The real stories are like everything else, people. Remember, nothing is as it appears. Everybody who thinks or tells you they're an expert ain't. They know nothing. We don't even know if they really have credentials of any value. What have they done to prove it? Well, we can look at so many of these people. They've done nothing. Who are they? What are they doing? We've turned over jet propulsion to a bookseller, a record dealer, and a madman, Blofeld, who basically built a city website, and they paid him hundreds of millions of dollars. And his brother was a financier who bought PayPal. So this is what we're talking about. What are their qualifications? And why would these people in any way would you turn money over to these people to build stuff they have no knowledge about whatsoever? I mean, this is madness. So the whole idea is that you're going to go to them and get rockets built from a record producer who is so dyslexic he doesn't know the difference between a profit and a loss, to a guy who made his money in the book industry and doing retail to begin with that. We need to get high rocketry from it, or for some guy who built a website and who ran a finance business that his brother bought. This is the problem. So, if you were to go to these people with a high-techy idea, what do you think they're going to be able to do with it? Nothing. They have no background to do it. They appoint people they think are qualified, but how would they know if they're qualified if they don't know the industry? So here we go again. So when we get into all this machine tech out there, there is nothing but a bunch of crap out there. It has nothing behind it. They have no years of experience. They haven't done the research. And it's just one bad piece of equipment after another with dubious or absolutely no value. Now, the whole idea is these technologies always tend to fall on the psychic, which tends to get you some sort of results, which means you'll probably get a positive result 10% of the time because you've psychically focused on it. It's just a machine visualization technique. And as such, this does work. But we're trying to get past that. We're trying to make this into a technology that is at least getting you 60% manifestation all the time, if not more. Yet you're not going to get this with any of these other things, and there's no proof of any of this whatsoever. It's just the same old nonsense. And what do? They copy. I see people copying a lot of Christopher Hill stuff now, and his technologies were pretty dirt poor. He just had just a bunch of printed patterns he put on boards and sold them. Well, in the 1980s or 70s, whenever this came out, well, these were kind of cool stuff. And now this is really a joke. So he never came out with any kind of technology of any value, even though I believe he had, and I have one of his, quote, machines that are the more expensive type. But the bottom line is these things are not much of a value out there in this day and age. And where has all this come? There are complicated machines that are put out there, but the bottom line is they don't produce any energies whatsoever. They are psychic tuners. Many of them don't even have amplifiers or broadcasting units in them. So they're not even basing their technologies on what's known to assist these processes. So here we go again. Are you working with occult engineers? Are you working with an organization that has credibility, who has background and years of experience? Well, there's only one out there, and that's Radionic Tech, and that's Dr. Thor. All the other people, I'm afraid to state, are misguided to the point that they are selling dangerous, toxic technologies. They are involved with criminal activities, and it is pretty frightening what's going on in a lot of this. The other ones are just delusional scammers that are just making a lot of money from a bunch of junk. And they've been around long enough to push their technologies on others and sell things even to a tiny group of people at such a high price that they're able to live fairly well selling junk. Or there's people that are out there just copying old machines. And of course, that's what they're doing. They copy. They have absolutely no idea of how any of this technology works. They have no idea of occult engineering. And of course, they certainly won't even come and try and learn this because they don't want to support anybody who really does. And they are not interested in any of it. So, we get into the same old situation here. Are you going to be the Ghost Adventures guy and you're going to hire a guy he thinks is a good electronic guy because he makes good toasters? He's got the best toaster on the market. Well, can't you make a ghost detection machine? Your toasters are so good. Yeah, I'll do that. We'll be able to toast the ghosts. Yeah, because I'm the toaster master. And I can take toaster technology and make it do everything. Well, I hope you understand all that, people. Until next time.